It was a normal Wednesday afternoon in São Paulo, Brazil. People were doing their usual things, not knowing something terrible was about to happen. On a busy street, cars were honking, buses were picking up people, and everyone was hurrying along. Suddenly, a super loud roar filled the air. A huge passenger plane, appearing seemingly out of nowhere, hit the top of a double-decker bus. The crash caused a huge shock. The bus, full of people, was crushed under the plane. The plane skidded across the road, leaving broken pieces everywhere. Buildings shook, windows broke, and the sound of screeching metal and people screaming filled the air. It was a scene of total destruction, unlike anything the city had ever seen. The smell of jet fuel and smoke filled the air, making the horrible scene even worse. People were stunned, trying to understand the enormity of the disaster that had just happened around them. This busy street, just moments ago a normal street, was now a disaster zone. Right after the crash, it was pure chaos. People were running everywhere, some screaming, some crying, others frantically trying to call for help. Injured people cried out in pain, trapped in the wreckage of the bus and plane. The air was thick with dust and the smell of burning metal, making it hard to breathe and see. I saw the plane coming down, and it just kept getting lower and lower, a shocked eyewitness, Maria Silva, told CNN. I couldn't believe it was really happening. It was like a nightmare. First responders, police, firefighters, and paramedics arrived quickly, but even they were overwhelmed by how big the disaster was. The destroyed bus, crushed under the plane, made it hard to reach survivors. The danger of fire from the leaking jet fuel made the rescue even more urgent. As firefighters worked to put out small fires and stop the jet fuel leak, paramedics worked hard to help the injured. The most seriously hurt were rushed to hospitals, while others were treated right there. People who could still walk, many in shock and disbelief, stumbled away from the wreckage, wanting to escape the nightmare. The city officials responded quickly. The area was blocked off, and emergency shelters were set up for people who lost their homes. The mayor of São Paulo told the victims and their families he was very sorry, and promised a full investigation into why the crash happened. "This is a terrible day for our city," he said in a press conference. "We are doing everything we can to help the victims and their families and to find out what caused this awful tragedy." After the disaster, investigators from Brazil's Aviation Authority, along with experts from other countries, started a big investigation into the cause of the crash. The plane's black box was found, and experts began studying the flight data and cockpit voice recordings for clues. The investigation looked at several things, including pilot error, mechanical problems, air traffic control rules, and how close the airport is to the city center. The crash started a discussion about city safety and airplane rules. Some experts wanted stricter rules about flight paths over areas with lots of people, while others wanted to review airport safety rules. The tragedy showed how dangerous air travel can be, especially in cities. While the investigation continues, São Paulo is left to mourn the people who died and deal with the trauma of the disaster. The crash is a serious reminder of how important safety rules are and the need to always be careful to prevent such tragedies from happening again. As the city rebuilds, it also has to learn from this tragedy to make sure its citizens are safe in the future.